One of the take-home messages that we've got for you guys, and I think the same take-home messages from the other podcasts we talk about, is just being self-aware. If you're self-aware, you know where you want to go. You'll know, like you said, Miranda, earlier, be in the moment of that season where you're at, right? I think that's one of the things, one of the take-home message you've got. The other one was being patient. Just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy the moment. Not too much pressure, because then that's when you have some mental issues and too much stress. Too much stress when you're too young. But unless sometimes stress is good just to get you going. But the third characteristic that I think is very important is just being grateful, gratitude. Just compare yourself to those who doesn't have any. Well, hello. I got two daughters here again today, and we're coming from the San Francisco Bay Area. My name is Arnold Paulos, and we have
Rhea
and Randy Paulos.
Randy Paulos, Rhea Paulos. We are in our episode of The New Beginning. Usually, we have certain things that we talk about in our podcast. Today is the season of, what is it the season of now? The season of
Easter.
Spring.
Spring.
Moving
right?
into summer.
Yeah. So now, if you take a look at this and the kind of things that we're going to be talking about today, is more of knowing what the season is, what season are you in, and what's the next season moving forward, right? So now you've got Rhea Paulos, just graduated. Now, you graduated from where again, Rhea?
UCLA.
UCLA. Now, that was how long ago?
Exactly a year ago.
So if you think about that, this is just 1 year separated from graduation. Now, Miranda Paulos, who is, how old are you now?
I always forget how old I am. I'm 24. I'm 24.
Yeah, it's going to get worse as you get a little older.
I forget.
One of the things that you'll notice is that there's a period of time, and what I'm talking about when we're talking about spring is usually a new beginning. Spring, when we're talking about seasons, we're talking about the winter, spring, summer, fall, and then it's this whole cycle of season. Now, same thing with what we do. You just graduated from college. Rhea did just within a year here. Miranda graduated from what school did you go to and graduated from, Miranda?
I graduated from UCI in 2019.
So now, if you look at that, that's what 3 years ago.
Yeah,
See how
that was so fast.
You'll know. It just goes so quickly.
Yeah,
now, the freshmen when I was a senior are graduating now, and I was like, whoa, they're already done. Yeah, it's really quick. I mean, our first episode when we first did this, that was about setting goals, a new year, brand new year, just right in the middle of, just getting through winter, brand new year. Now we're at spring, and see how fast that quickly comes. And my favorite holidays are usually in the summer, 4th of July, and wintertime, Christmas. So if you look at that, there's always this changing holidays, changing weather, changing. So now if you look at that, have you noticed any changes within this last 12 months that you just graduated? Because you graduated from UCLA, June 2000?
I walked in June, but I finished in March.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at if you look at the 12 months, it just goes so quickly. Mm-hmm. I could remember just when you guys were so small, and then now you're at this early stage of adulthood, and then we're gonna go through all these stages, this season, this life journey, and you guys, and if you think about it, don't you feel like, what am I gonna do next? 'Cause that's the same thing that we talked about in our second episode, which was, what's next? What do I do next? I'm telling you, that question will always come up. What's next? What am I going to do next? What should I be doing? No matter what age you are, no matter what season you're in, no matter what part of your journey you're in, you are going to ask that question all the time. So now, our second episode, we were just talking about what's next, right? Now, have you guys figured out what's next? Because after spring, what's next? Summer, right? So now if you think about it, what is the symbolism of spring anyway? Like I was saying, it's basically new birth, rebirth. Easter, right? Easter is resurrection. And so a little background of who we are. Arnold Paulos. I'm a dentist here in the Bay Area, East Bay Area of San Francisco. We are about 30 miles away from the city of San Francisco. We live in the city of Pleasanton. In my dental office, and I've been a dental dentist now for 30 years. My dental office is located in the city of Dublin. Now, Rhea Paulos, 23. Oh my goodness, 23 years old. How long has it been since you graduated from high school? Like
Almost
5 years
5
ago?
years ago.
Yeah, and then if you look at Miranda Paulos, 24, and then that, like, if you think about that, how long ago did you graduate from high school? 7 years ago?
Yeah, 7, 8 years almost.
Oh, look at that!
Right.
Just like that. And then in the last 3 months, you were living here during the pandemic in the Bay Area, and then now where are you at now?
Now I moved to St. Louis.
Yeah. So you see that. If you were thinking when you graduated from college, did you even think that you're going to be going to and living in St. Louis now?
I never thought I was going to be in St. Louis. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I didn't even know where St. Louis was.
Yeah, so I know where St. Louis was, but I've never been to St. Louis. Arnold Paulos is a immigrant, came here to the United States when I was 9 years old, and I came here from the country of the Philippines. So me, Miranda, Rhea, we're Filipinos. So Rhea Paulos, Miranda Paulos, they were born here in the United States. So we were born here in California. We are from California. I like the state. Most people right now, they're moving out of the state for whatever reason they have. But, I'm not planning on moving out of California. I like this weather. Even there's reasons why people move out, but I think most people come here because of the weather and everything about California. And then some people move out of here for a lot of reasons. But the reasons why I stay here is because the weather's good, and also my family's here, and that's very important to me. So one family member is not here, Miranda Paulos, she's in St. Louis, but those are the things that people have to do. They have to move on and go to wherever they need to go. Same thing with when we're talking about the journey that we have to go through. Things, no matter how much you plan, things will always change, and you just have to be able to go ahead and go with the flow with that. Now, I remember one of the things that Miranda Paulos was talking about before we started here was, what are we talking about today? And then I said, you know what? We are going to be talking about the season of life, the journey of the things that we have to go through, because of, if you know the journey that you guys have been gone through, you went from a child to adolescence to young adult right now. You guys are going to go through the stuff that we've gone through. Me and your mom have gone through. Now for me, I'm I would say a baby boomer born in 1964. I'm 57 years old now. So there's certain things that I know that you guys are going through. A lot of these stories, the stories that we have, are not going to be very, I wouldn't say they're different than anybody else's story. We all have our story. But if you think about it, and the seasons that we go through, no matter what happens, you're still going to go through the same season. So with what Miranda was talking about before we started, was you were talking about in your own podcast. What were you saying? What were you talking about? You were talking about a certain journey, certain season that you were talking about?
Yeah, I was talking about how in life we go through seasons. And for me, being in St. Louis, the season that I have really just experienced differently now is the winter season, because in California it doesn't snow, and here I was experiencing actual snow and actual cold in the winter, so it was a different change. But here in St. Louis, what's a little different about the winter is that it snows, but then the snow melts. Like it might snow for a couple days, but then in a day or two then it melts, and then maybe it snows again, and then it sticks for a day or two, and then it melts. And then that made me realize that yes, we go through seasons and things are always changing. So if you're in a season right now that may be a little hard or a little difficult, like similar to when we were in the pandemic, things are always changing. So the season's not going to be the same for a long period of time. It's always going to be changing, and it's always going to be cyclical. But it also reminds me that yes, seasons change, so we also have to be present in the current season that we're in now. So that was my podcast that I was talking about. But it just reminded me that yes, we go through seasons and things change, but we also have to remember to be present in the season that we're in now, because it's always we might not have it again.
Well, there's a lot of wisdom there from
Thanks.
a 24-year-old. Our podcast is called Beyond Wisdom, and that's just because there's a certain point where, as a dentist, we talk about taking out the wisdom teeth, and usually that happens between when it starts coming out, the wisdom teeth starts coming out at 18 to 24 years old. We pulled out Miranda's wisdom teeth. When was that, right? About last year?
Yeah.
Right before you went to St. Louis. And so I think we're going to go ahead, and that's beyond that period, beyond that. Even though we're going to be talking about for people who listening to this podcast who might have kids who are in high school, kids who have parents who have kids who are in preschool, but everybody goes through those seasons, and it's always good to know, and it's always good to have somebody who you could turn to ask questions who has gone through those seasons. But in Miranda's point, there are seasons, you have to be in the moment. And then for me, our season is that we've got young adults in our family. I've got two kids, Miranda and Rhea Paulos, in their early 20s. And so we also have, Miranda and Rhea has a brother. I have a son, Andrew Paulos, who is, how old is he?
He's going to be 22.
Oh my God, 22 years old. Arnold Paulos is a special needs child of ours, and he needs a lot of attention. So, if he's able to go, I'm laughing because if he was able to come over here and be part of this podcast, I'm like, I'd drag him over here just to go see what he'd say. But you guys know, people who knows our family knows that Andrew Paulos is a special needs kid. He's not going to be able to come over here and do a podcast with us. What do you guys think?
No.
No, I think at some point maybe we'll drag him to see what he can say in our podcast. But if people are wondering, like, Arnold Paulos, don't you have 3 kids? Yes, I have 3 kids, and they're all young adults. 2 of them are right here. I've got them through college. Now, one of the things, like I said, if there are parents here who are raising kids, some of them are preschool, some of them are high schools. Well, I've been there, I've done that. And then now I've got kids who are young adults, graduated from college. Now, it was my choice. It was my choice, my wife's choice, to go ahead and provide them an opportunity to go to college, right? So now I think if that is important to you, it's what you do as parents. But at this point in time, information is out there so easily that college is important. I think personally it's important, but for some people, I think all the information is out there. What I'm trying to teach these guys is just try to find something that you like to do, something that will make you happy. Because I've gone through and I've seen where parents, we go ahead and try to tell our kids what to do most of the time. And I think we were doing that a lot when you guys were preschool. I mean, you couldn't make up your own mind. So we're going to go ahead and tell you, well, you know what? You're going to go to preschool here. You're going to go to high school here. And then as you get into college, we can go ahead and guide you as to what college to, apply for. But I think there's some kids, sometimes they don't even want to go to college. So for me, I think it's important. And so that's the reason why we went ahead and said, okay, you know what? Let me bite the bullet and pay for your colleges. And now I know for some kids, right now they are, spring, they're finding out which college am I going to go through? Because you guys been through that season, right? You guys been through that season, like, I'm going to apply to this school, that school. Well, we live in California, and one of the harder schools to get into in California is the University of California. And how many UCs are there in California? What, 9?
There's 9.
There's a lot of, and there's also in our state, there are also the University of California system, there is the state system, and there is the junior college system, and there's also private universities. And I'm telling you, as I see my patients, they put a lot of pressures on themselves, and the parents put a lot of pressures on their kids to figure out, like, what college will they be applying. And the other thing is, like, the peers around them put so much pressure on, like, what school are you going to go to? So those are stages that you went through. And then aren't you glad that you're over that stage, right? Because of sometimes there is no control on your part at that point after you graduated to what school is going to accept me, right? Because you went to high school, that stage, that journey of 4 years, getting all the grades or whatever it is that you're getting, to when you're early part of that year, you're applying to schools, and then by spring, you're hoping that you get into the school that you want to get into, right? And you're starting to think, how come I didn't get into that school, but I got into this school? Or how come I didn't get into the school that I want to get into? Now I'm going to go to the school that I don't want to go to. And you see that a lot. You see, there's just so much pressure on these kids. But then again, I think it's still important to go to school. I think that
I think it's also too, like with Rhea's story is a little different. She wanted to go to UC Berkeley, and then she didn't get into UC Berkeley.
I got waitlisted.
And then she visited UCLA, and then she's like, I actually like UCLA more than I liked Berkeley. So sometimes that happens too. You think you want to go somewhere else, and then you realize something else is maybe a better fit for you.
Of course. Now, remember when, and you know what? It was fun for me when we were going and visiting universities, because I remember when you were thinking about which school you want to go to. Miranda Paulos was thinking about which school she wanted to go to, and there's a couple of schools that she was thinking of. And then we eventually decided that you wanted to go to UC Irvine. And then same thing with Rhea Paulos. She was going like, oh, what school am I going to go to? I mean, you know, it's just too much pressure on the kids, because they are, I don't even think you guys know what you're trying to sign up for. You know, like, you know, oh,
I
want
think
to go here.
you just think you're checking boxes because everyone else is doing
Yeah.
it too. So you're just trying to follow the same path.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
Like,
it's like, but if you don't follow that path, like what path are you going to follow? So might as well just try it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. So you got, so, you know, are you going to say anything?
Yeah, but I think what's very important is that you strive for like individuality and like figure out what you want and what you want to do, even though if it's not normal, or even though your parents say like, don't do it, like just still do it, just still do, because I think there's a beauty of finding like what you're capable of, and like that can lead you to so many different directions rather than to that one direction that you think, oh, this is like meant for me, you know?
Yeah. So you know that you went through that stage, and that's something that I think you guys could give mentorship to with kids who are applying to schools, or kids who are in college and trying to figure out what they want to do. Because that's what, when you were, I remember when you were in UCLA, that's what you were doing, weren't you? You were advising students. I think when they were going to go ahead and apply, or after they got in, you were part of that group where that you took them in.
Yeah.
And then kind of showed them, what was the thing that you did?
So I was fortunate enough to be a part of this Filipino transfer student group. Yeah, it's called PTSP. It's so with that, they had this event called SED, which is the Student Empowerment Networking Day, where they bring like admits into their program just to see like, oh, this is what UCLA can offer you, whether that's academically or like socially. So we show them like, oh yeah, this is what happens academically. This is like the classes, and this is where like the buildings are at. This is the special services that UCLA provides for you. But then also it shows that there's like a community for, especially for transfers, because for transfers, you're always in your journey is just like your own journey. Like you don't really rely on anybody in college. You're actually just by yourself trying to like check off the boxes of trying to transfer out of like the community college system or wherever you're like transferring from. So like we gave like the admins like an opportunity to show them like, yeah, this could be you if you apply to, if you like SIR, I think that's what it's called, into UCLA.
Yeah, and all the universities have certain programs where it makes that transition, and that's basically, I think, what you were trying to help fellow students who's coming into the university make that transition to the university a little bit more easier. Because I think that's the kind of work that Miranda's doing now with, because she's working in the university where you are helping students who's in there and cope with that new environment. Like, what is it that you're doing now, Miranda?
Yeah, so I work in student affairs in a medical school here in St. Louis. So what we're trying to do is create programs. We're kind of in this developing phase where we're trying to create programs to help medical students on their academic journey. So just outside of their curriculars, to make sure that they're having a holistic experience, not just so focused on just books, because that's just one part of, you know, being a medical student, but also making sure that they're taking care of themselves, like, you know, spiritually and physically and mentally, and creating programs and resources so that they can, like, you know, thrive as a medical student, not just focus so much on just studying, but making sure that they're just taking care of themselves holistically. So that's what we're kind of doing at the moment, just creating programming to support the medical students at our school.
Yeah, so you guys have the background of helping others, being able to go ahead and say, okay, now I've been through this, or I have the skills or the information for you to succeed in what you're doing, and you're just trying to pass that on to them, being a facilitator to their journey, because they have a journey that they're going to go through. And then basically, like I said, you have that experience where when you were at UCLA, Rhea, you were actually helping out the students who's never been to the UCLA, and then giving them that support, right? And then so basically, Miranda, what she's doing now in St. Louis is you're part of, I think, the university where you guys are giving the student affairs, you guys are giving that support to the students. And then because it's not just all about academics when you go to a university. And for those who is listening to this podcast, for the parents who have kids who's going to go to college in the fall, we are now in the spring. and in the spring is when you get accepted to the universities. And then now those guys, the kids that are applying to the universities, are going to be making decision as to which school am I going to go to, right? And so if you've got a couple of choices, the choices that you make is going to affect you for the rest of your life, because you're going to be spending the next 4 years in this university that you have chosen, and then and that's going to shape you in terms of what you're going to do next after that 4 years. So no matter what it is that you do, things that you do right now and in the near future will affect you as you move forward. And so what you guys are doing, Rhea Paulos, Miranda Paulos, you guys are facilitating that journey for them. So, those are the things that we used to do when I was in dental school. And then even when I was an undergraduate, I was doing things similar to what you guys were doing, where the students come in. We were recruiting at UCSF. I went to the University of California, San Francisco Dental School. And so when I was in dental school at UCSF, we had a program where we were recruiting students to apply to our school, because the more students that apply to the university, the more applicants we have to choose from. And so our administrators in the university wants us to go out into other universities to let them know and give them an opportunity to apply to the dental schools that I went to UCSF. Same thing with what you guys are doing. The difference with what we were doing as a student trying to recruit dental students to apply to the dental school where I went to at UCSF, what you were doing is that those guys already got in to the university, and then you were just trying to facilitate that transition and making sure that they know the programs that you had at UCLA. And then for Miranda, you guys are having, I think this is what you're saying, that you guys are putting together programs so that, there's more to life than the anatomy class that you're taking. There's more to life than the test that you're taking in pharmacology, because of even, you have to be a person too, right? You have to go ahead and have some spiritual health, mental health, and of course, because once you get into the university, once you get into a medical school, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that you succeed and move through it. But that's the same thing with the dental school. If you get into dental school at UCSF, it's like 99.9% everybody who gets in there graduates. There's not too many students. When I was there, there was about 83 students, and all of us graduated except for maybe one person who at that time didn't, in the middle of our, I think, junior or maybe sophomore year, he said, like, you know what, this is not for me. And now he's already gotten into a dental school, and he's decided, this is not for me. It's easy to say that when you're an undergrad. Just, UCLA is not for me, right? Or UC Irvine is not for me, I'm gonna go someplace else. Or it's not for me because they choose to kick me out of here because I can't make the grades on whatever school that they went to. So that's not your choice. That's the university's choice to kick you out. But those things happen. Or you've chosen to say, you know what, I think I'm going to go and do a different path. But once you get into postgraduate, it's very difficult, and especially now when you're getting into student loans, like what am I going to do if I get out of the medical school? Because if you go to medical school, I mean, the tuition is so expensive. Like, you get out, what are you going to do? You've already paid that tuition, right? So but in an undergrad situation, sometimes it's tough to say, like, what am I going to do? I'm paying all this tuition, and then you almost kind of have to, like, I think I'm going to have to finish this, right? But doing it early, it's easier to go ahead and say, okay, I think I got to switch. Because one of the things that you mentioned, Rhea, is just being aware as to what is it that you'd like to do. That's one of the main characteristics that I'm trying to instill in you guys right now as a young adult, is always trying to find out, being self-aware as to what is it that you want. Because those things change, but being self-aware, knowing your skills, knowing where your weaknesses are, and then being able to say, you know what, this is who I am, this is where I want to go. Because at this point, as a young adult, you are making decisions that is going to affect what you do moving forward. So one of the things too, and this is important, one characteristic that I just mentioned is self-awareness. The other characteristic that I think is important is being patient.
Yes.
Right? So at this time, if you're looking at you guys' age, you're what, early 20s? This is a different time now. I mean, like, most people before, when you're like 19, you're like old, right? But if you still remember now, when you're 19, like, I'm just starting. I don't know where I want to be. So at this point in time, young 20-year-old, mid-20s, be patient, because there's no reason to rush into anything that sometimes you don't know if this is really what you want to do. Like, we're at this age now, in 2022 now, the year 2022, our life expectancy is all the way up to like 70s, 80s. And then, in the stages of life and in the things that we're seeing, there's birth. I remember a long time ago, everything, cousins, there's always a birthday, right? There's always a baptism. There's always weddings, right? So you go through those stages: birthdays, weddings. Now, what are we seeing a lot of? And I'm not, I don't want to even go there. But most of the family members that
I can answer.
most of the family members that we have are getting older, and we're going through that journey of seeing a lot of people, especially with the pandemic, right? Where that journey of life from birth to death and anything in between. And then now we are seeing a lot more of the end part of it. Like, what were you going to say? What were you going to answer, Miranda?
I was going to say, you're like, what are we seeing now? And I was like, a lot of our family are starting to move on and pass away.
Yes.
Because you see
you guys see that. Yes, you guys see that. But you guys also saw, I remember, you probably remember, we would go to a lot of birthday parties, right? And then I don't know if you remember this, because you could see all the photos and all the videos that I took. We had birthdays every month for you guys. I mean, we had a birthday every month ever since. You guys, I have 3 kids. They're born in a certain month. And every month for 12 months, we had a birthday. Do you see those videos?
I think that's a Filipino thing. I'm not sure.
That is not a Filipino thing.
Oh, then why did we do that?
We just did that. I'll tell you.
We were the only babies at that time.
No, because you guys are the only babies at that time, because of Michelle Paulos is his dad. Her dad was the oldest of 8 kids, right? And so she was one of the older cousins, and you guys were the only kids. And so we had a party, not because of like we want to have a party. We had a party because it was my way of thinking, like, how do I get the families together every month, where everybody.
It was an excuse to have the party.
It was an excuse to get just to get together.
The Arnold Paulos
Yes,
thing.
because the Filipinos didn't have a birthday party every month. I don't see that in any of your cousins now. They don't have a party every month.
Yeah,
right?
Like, why did we do that?
So if you were thinking like, how come we were having a party every month? Well, it was because of me and your mom decided, we should have a party. It gives us a chance to get to know my sisters, because I have 4 sisters, and then Michelle has 1 brother, but she has a lot of cousins, right? And so every month it was a good way to have my sisters get to know Michelle's brother and father and mother. It was just a way for us to always get together. Because what's important to me has always been family. It was always been like, if you really think about it, what really makes you happy is really relationships with family and friends. And then if you notice in all the videos that, if you ever look back in the videos that we used to have, it was always family, friends that would always be there, right? And every month for 12 months, and then we always, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, the 12th month, the first year birthday, what do we have?
A big birthday.
A big birthday, which is usually
First birthday.
It was, what kind of party was it?
The first birthday.
I know, but it was always a picnic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it was, if you look at it, you guys' birthday was always in a nice weather. So like Ray Paulos is like spring, Andrew Paulos is like spring, Miranda Paulos is at the end of the summer, right? It never rained in those picnics. So if you ever look at that, and if you ever look at, there's always a theme. I don't know, do you remember Ray Paulos' theme? Easter. It was an Easter bunny stuff, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And then Miranda Paulos, do you remember yours?
My Hello Kitty was my first birthday.
And then Andrew Paulos was.
His was Karopi.
Yes. So you get all that.
Character.
So if and if we get a chance to, now I'll put that out on maybe on the social media, because of, we're not making this up. I mean, this is the stuff that we did when we were like, we're talking 20 something years ago here, right? And then so if you guys would think like, how come we don't celebrate my birthday every year? No, like we had like every month we had your birthday celebrated.
Now we remember it now.
Right? So I'm telling you, I think, and we joke around about like you guys, if even Andrew, when you ask, oh, where's daddy going? Where do you think I'm going, Andrew?
Dental office.
Yes. He knows I'm always at the dental office, not because of I gotta work. It's because I really like doing what I do. You guys understand that, man, dad is always at the dental office. Not necessarily doing dentistry. It's just that I like the stuff about anything about dentistry. And so, but I'm always having a birthday party every month, right? And so that's why I was saying, like, no matter what we do, no matter if you guys got anything that you guys want to do, me and your mom was always there, because that's part of our journey to make sure that we are involved in your journey as kids, as young adults, as graduated college students, But then now, after a while, when you're an adult, we'll just be there as best as we can, but then you got other things that you guys got to do, right? And then if you guys invite us, we're probably still going to go, but still, no matter if we're busy, we still take time to make sure that we still have a relationship with you guys, to make sure that we know, and we are part of your lives as you are part of what we do. Because now, like I said, in the journeys that we go through, from birthday parties, weddings, like, don't you like, these last few years, the last 10 years, there was a lot of weddings that we went through, right? And then if you ever look at those,
that one was like an every month thing.
Everybody was getting
period
married.
Of time.
Yes. And then, and then one thing about the family that we belong to, because we are Filipinos, so we like to have these big type parties, especially weddings and baptism and birthday parties. It's huge. And so, what's important with the way we grew up is just that relationship of family, making sure that you have relationship with friends, you have relationship with family members, and then that goes on, and then you still see everybody's journey from birth to passing on. And so, like when we're talking about, most of the things that we were seeing these past few years was just, COVID. We're going through COVID, and then you see a lot of the older people, they're getting older and older and older, and they go through their journey. And so you're seeing that, but then now you're seeing that in your early 20s, right? So what's important right now for you guys to know is that you have to be self-aware of the things that you want to do. Be patient, because if you've got a long ways to go here, like, what's the rush, right? And I'm not suggesting that you can't rush things. I'm just suggesting is don't put too much pressure on yourself, because of, like, you're only 20 something years old here, right? And then you don't have to be successful yet. And so sometimes you start thinking, like, I'm going through this stage now where 30 years in dentistry, I'm thinking, like, well, what's next? Well, what's next, because there's certain things that I've already done in the last 30 years. And then I've always done this where, and if you notice, most of my dental assistants are students who wants to be dentists. And then most of them I start seeing as being dentists now. Our assistant becomes their own dentist. So that's part of what gives me enjoyment, is I'm seeing our assistant becoming dentists, teaching them how to become dentists, because they're motivated. They know, they're self-aware that this is what they want to do. So most of the things that I see in my practice is really just being able to go ahead and share what I know to the people who works at our office. And so if you're thinking, like, well, what's next? It's not about retiring or not doing dentistry anymore. It's just you'll start to see this as you get a little older, that you don't necessarily stop what you're doing. What you actually do is switch to a certain point where you become the mentor, or you become the teacher of what it is that you know. And that's enjoyment in itself, still being able to do what I'm passionate about, and being able to go and transfer that information to the next person. Just like what you guys are doing now. You guys are practicing what I'm telling you. You are very little information that you've got being a student, and being able to pass that on to the student that's going to be coming into the university, right? And so to help them in their journey. So part of what we do in our podcast is Beyond Wisdom, just trying to impart some wisdom in the things that we've been through, the things that we are going through, and then being able to go in and hopefully help in a way that it's a little bit more entertainment. So to let people know, what, we're not alone. This is like everybody else. I've got a 57-year-old dentist, a 23, 24-year-old, a young adult who's going through their journey. And then you guys could talk about the journey that you've been through in high school, in college, and the journey that you're going through now. So now if you start thinking about that, you start thinking about what's next, right? Remember, like the things that we always talk about, and in the next podcast that we're going to talk about, because of what is next. Now for you, Rhea, like I remember when you were in UCLA, you were already doing the things that you like, working with Kumu, right? Mm-hmm. Now tell us about that journey, and then being able to go putting that in what you like, because I think you like what you're doing in that field, because I see the enjoyment, and then you're helping us with our stuff with it, right?
Yeah. So I went live on this live streaming app called Kumu. It's based in the Philippines. That just actually helped me like gain a little bit more skills on like public speaking and like hosting and like producing like live stream events. And with that, it led me to working like behind the scenes and in certain projects, or like it also led me to like even host interviews with people that, to be honest, I never thought of like dreaming of talking to, like because they're like famous Filipino actors. So with that, I think me being like interested in the Filipino entertainment industry led me to like finding outlets to expand my skill and my craft and figure out what I like and what I do not like. And yeah, I interview people for fun at the moment, but I feel like it's gonna evolve into something bigger in the future.
Yeah, so if you see that, I think, like I said, I think you're enjoying that. Miranda's doing the things that she's enjoying, and I do listen to her podcast. And they're like, I think, how many podcasts do you have now, Miranda?
Ooh, I'm releasing my 36th episode.
Wow,
So I
wow.
have about 36 episodes now.
You know what? I think that's amazing. 36, because we're only on our third, right?
Consistency is key.
It's really is, and so I'm just really glad that we're able to do this. Now, the other thing, and then I always want to try to do this. Like I said, one of the take-home messages that we've got for you guys, and I think it's the same take-home messages from the other podcasts we talk about, is just being self-aware. If you're self-aware, you know where you want to go. You'll know, like you said, Miranda, earlier, be in the moment of that season where you're at, right? I think that's one of the things, one of the take-home message you've got. The other one was being patient. Just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy the moment. Not too much pressure, because then that's when you have some mental issues and too much stress. Too much stress when you're too young. But unless sometimes stress is good just to get you going. But the third characteristic that I think is very important is just being grateful, gratitude. Just compare yourself to those who doesn't have any, right? And so you couldn't be happier to where you're at. When you're feeling down, and just say, I'm just grateful that I've got what I got. I'm healthy. My relationship with my family, my friends, and my health is where I want it to be. And then compared to other people who, and remember, before the pandemic, you know where we went?
The Philippines.
Yes.
Yep.
And so now, if you guys, I'm hoping that you guys realize that there's certain things that I do to make, and sometimes you guys might not think that there are teaching moments, but that was a teaching moment.
Oh yeah.
The teaching moment, just to let you know. And then you guys saw where we were born, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about, we were born in a house.
See where our family came from.
Yes. And
like, man, this is where we came from.
I have 4 sisters, and we were born in a house. It wasn't in a hospital, right? And if you think about that, like, your grandmother had us, and there weren't an ambulance, or we didn't go to hospital to get birth. I mean, we're talking the Philippines, a third world country where we were at. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Manila's pretty nice, right? It's pretty nice, civilized city. But then when you have to go rural, you have to go province, we're talking in the 60s here. There was no hospitals where we were at. And so if you were thinking about that, and then if you were thinking, where did you guys come from? I took you where we were from. And then you could kind of figure out, well, you know what? No matter what happens now, it's all gravy now, right? Compared to where I could have been. Because a joke that I have with your mom is like, I think if I stayed there, I probably wouldn't have any teeth, let alone fixing somebody's teeth, coming to the United States. That's why grateful being here. My dad making that decision to come to the United States and sacrifice living his family to come to the United States and starting a new life. And then I'm just grateful for that, him making that decision. So where you guys are able to have that opportunity to go to school here, and then have those birthday every month, where I think if you lived in the Philippines, you wouldn't be able to have those birthday every month. That's why when you were saying like, that's a Filipino thing. No, it's not a Filipino thing. Because we didn't have a birthday every month. And so for us, like I said, self-aware, be patient, and just gratitude. And if you could put that in perspective, this journey that you're going through, the journey of seasons that you're going to be going through, I think you'll get through it, and just be in the presence of that season, and then looking forward to the next season, because the next season is my favorite season, one of them. And if you ever noticed, and I don't do necessarily things on a whim. It always seems to be like there's a purpose, right? Because if you, and I told you, if you ever go to my house, I've got 2 pictures that are my favorite, Rhea. You remember? One picture, I have 2 of them, which is what date?
Christmas.
Yes, that's my favorite. That is one of my favorite holidays. And the other holiday,
4th of July.
So if you look at that, like, no, you know it because of those are the photos that you see that I keep,
It's on the mantle.
right? And
Yeah.
so if you notice that, those are in the middle of the year and then at the end of the year, right? And it's usually, if you look at those two holidays, they're family holidays. You know, you have the 4th of July picnics, and Christmas is when you come together. You know, so if you guys ever look at the house, there's reasons why I do it a certain way. It wasn't just because like, oh, I think it looks good over here, right? There's a reason for that. And so I think right now, just like I said, just be aware of what you want to do. Patience, be patient, and then just be gratitude, being grateful to what we've got. I think this journey of life season is going to be a fun one. So anything else? Oh, so in our next one, any particular question that you're going to be going through in terms of what's next?
No.
No, okay. So you know what? I always come up with something anyway, but we still one of the main things that I think we've got to do is just being very consistent, getting really good into doing this podcast, because I've got two people over here, Miranda Paulos, Rhea Paulos, early 20s, and they've got their own podcast. I don't know. Do you have a podcast yet?
Coming soon.
Yeah, and then Miranda Paulos, look Miranda Paulos up for her podcast. So she does her own thing. But you know what? This is becoming a very fun opportunity for us to share with everybody on what we do beyond wisdom.